I'll get it started. Just tell us your reaction and what your thoughts are on the retirement of Bruce Rasmussen.
Well, it's a bittersweet day. On one hand, I've worked with Bruce every day for going 11 years or whatever it's been. He's had a tremendous impact on me professionally and personally. And while he's certainly not going away, he'll still be a big part of my life. Just not having him next door is going to be tough. On the other side of it is, I've had a chance to visit with Bruce yesterday on the phone and today in person, and he's in a great place, and he's happy, and he's looking forward to the next chapter in his life. And if anybody has earned that, it's Bruce Rasmussen. I can't. Creighton talks about the Jesuit values of having care for the person, and I don't know that I've met anybody in my life that embodies that like Bruce Rasmussen does. His ability to put other people first and have no agenda for himself is really impressive, and the world would be a lot better place if more of us were like Bruce Rasmussen.
We'll go to questions now. We'll start with Joe Nugent from Channel 6.
Hey, Mac, curious if you have an example or something through the years that you could maybe share that that really shows what a great athletic director Bruce has been, especially for the program.
We don't have enough time. I have a million examples, but he's whether he's pulling a guy aside after practice that had a rough game the night before, and you look over there and the kid has had a tough day, and all of a sudden they're both laughing. And Bruce has a unique ability to impact people in a positive way and help people find the best in themselves. And he's done that on countless occasions during the time that I've worked with him. And as I said, he's been a mentor to me. He's got a great basketball mind. Obviously, people, we've celebrated so much what he's done as an athletic director, but he was a heck of a basketball coach before that, and someone that I've been able to bounce things off of over the course of the years as well.
Next, we'll go to John Diatalo with the Omaha World Herald.
Yeah, Greg, it's been a tough year over the last, 12 months, COVID, and the challenges that are associated with that. I feel like Bruce, in moments of crisis, a lot of people talk about sort of just the way he handles that is different than others, and I wonder what you have experienced in moments where you've talked to your boss and had to have some frank conversations knowing that there's a lot at stake.
Well, his ability to steer us through that very difficult time, I can't imagine anybody that's more prepared to be able to do something like that. And we were in an unprecedented time, yet Raz had a plan, and his first priority was, we're going to take care of the people in our department the best that we possibly can, given the circumstances that we've been dealt with here. But people have to come first, and I think he did an unbelievable job of that. And then tried to make it as easy as possible for the student athletes who, their life was far from normal. Yet Bruce wanted to make sure that their experience as a Creighton athlete, even during the pandemic, was as good as it could possibly be. And I think he put his best foot forward at a time when we really needed him the most.
Next, we'll go to Matt Foster, KETV.
Greg, how hard is it going to be for Bruce's replacement to try and live up to the legacy he leaves behind?
Well, what Bruce has accomplished at Creighton is, it's legendary. I think back, and I'm old enough that I coached against Creighton in the Civic Auditorium, and I know there were some rough years before that because by that time Dana had turned things around, and they were certainly moving the right direction. But what he's been able to do, with, I don't think many people thought that Creighton playing basketball in this new arena downtown was maybe the greatest idea at the time that it happened. Will we ever be able to put people in there? And I think those questions have been answered. I think his foresight in that arena was pretty impressive. But he's done a lot. You think how we've been, the seamless transition that we made from the Missouri Valley Conference to the Big East Conference. This beautiful practice facility and the facilities that we have up and down Florence Street here, Florence Boulevard. That's his vision, and a lot of fundraising on his part, and him being able to sell that vision to our friends and donors across the community and across the country, so that when we did move to the Big East, we really were positioned to have an opportunity to be successful from the jump. And that doesn't happen unless you have a leader that really understands what it takes. And I think you just need to look around, and when you have great leadership like we had in this athletic department with Bruce Rasmussen, it's the reason you have one basketball coach or two basketball coaches in 27 years. You have Kirsten, who's been here forever. You have Flan, who's been in that position, and Ed, who's been in his position. So across the board, coaches don't leave, and they don't leave because of the person in charge.
Next, we'll go to John Bishop, 1620 The Zone.
Mac, when Ras hired you, he made mention several times that you were one of his first choices. Looking at it from the opposite side, when you were coming over from Iowa State, you mentioned you coached against Creighton before you had a chance to coach at Creighton. But what did you see in Ras, more so than the university itself, that you knew this would be a good fit for you?
Well, I had a chance to meet Bruce, early in my tenure at Northern Iowa, and we had the connection of both being from small town Iowa, both being Northern Iowa graduates. So that's something that I think we connected on early. And then as he watched our program kind of develop, while certainly Dana was winning championships at Creighton during that time, I think he appreciated the way we went about it at Northern Iowa, and he told me one time in a hallway in St. Louis, I'll never forget it, after we'd lost a tough game, that Mac, if Dana ever leaves, you're going to be my first call. And my initial thought as I kept walking was that there's a guy that's just trying to make me feel better after I've lost a really tough game. But you fast forward to that spring of 2010 or 2010 or 11, whenever the heck it was. And I was his first call, and I came to Creighton because of Bruce Rasmussen. I knew very little about Creighton except for my trips to Omaha and obviously the job that Coach Altman had done. But my belief was in the person. And once I got here, it was easy for me to see, how much Bruce cared about this institution and how much he believed in this institution and what it stood for. So it was certainly one of the better professional moves in my career, because I've met so many wonderful people as a result of that journey, but none better than Bruce Rasmussen.
John Nietau.
Greg, your office is right next to Bruce's. What are the daily interactions like? You mentioned his basketball mind. I know he's not going to interject too much, but I wonder if he gave you any pointers, made you laugh a few times. What's it like?
I've heard a lot of the same bad jokes many times over and over again over the course of the last 11 years. I can almost predict it. But, like I said, he's got a way. Like I mentioned with student athletes, he has a way of picking you up when you need to be picked up. And he's been someone that I can ask advice on, not just on professional matters. Obviously, he's a tremendous husband and father. So there's things that happen with young families that you need advice on, and I think Bruce has been there to offer advice not just to me, but anybody on his staff. And that door is always open, and you see all kinds of people going in and out of there, not just coaches. You see student athletes stopping by to talk to them, and I think it's just rare at our level to be in a Power 6 conference where the athletic director is so accessible, not just to coaches but to boosters and fans and student athletes. But that's what Bruce is about. He's a person for others, and that part of it is certainly going to be tough to adjust to, because he's been a great friend and mentor to me.
We got time for one more question for Coach McDermott, if there is one. Again, use the raise hand feature. We'll go back to John Nietau.
Yeah, sure. you have a sense at all, Greg, that this might be, I mean, Bruce is always every day kind of goes about his job the same, but I wonder, you know, we all get old, right? Like, you probably, did you see this coming at all?
I mean, the timing of it maybe surprises me a little, but Bruce and I have had conversations over the course of the last few years, you know, because obviously I care for him deeply as well and want him to be happy. And so we've talked about the next chapter a few times, and there's some things he'd like to do. And I think he indicated that in his statement. And like I said, my initial reaction was, you know, was a selfish reaction because I really enjoy working with Bruce Rasmussen. But once I was able to talk to him and just see, you know, how excited he is about moving on to the next chapter in his life and enjoying some things that maybe this job has kept him from enjoying. You know, he deserves that. He's earned that. And you know, Creighton is in an incredible place because of who he is and the work that he's done. And I think we're really positioned to move forward with whoever's in charge because of the groundwork that he has laid.
Great. Thank you, Coach. We'll have Johnny Torres here shortly.
Thanks, guys.
This meeting is being recorded.
Creighton men's soccer head coach Johnny Torres joins us now. Johnny, if you will, just kind of your thoughts on Bruce's retirement, and we'll open it up for questions.
Well, I had the honor and the pleasure to get to know Coach Rass back in 1994 when I first came on campus as a student athlete. And so, you know, we've shared some great memories, and over the years I've gotten much closer to Coach Rass, and it's for me a neat situation where I knew him both as a student athlete, as a coach, and as my boss. So I think it's a relationship that will continue to last, and I'm honored to have learned so much from a guy like Coach Rass.
We'll start with questions, beginning with Joe Nugent from Channel 6.
Hey, Coach, I'm curious if you could provide an example of how maybe Bruce has helped you or somebody on the team or helped the program, something that maybe is different than what you would expect from an athletic director.
You know, I had some conversations with Coach Rass earlier in my coaching career, and the one thing that rang true, and I think it speaks volumes of the kind of person that Coach Rass is his humility. And it's something that I've focused on utilizing in my everyday interactions with our student athletes is showing them that you are also vulnerable, even though you are their coach. And it's something that I use every day and that I find very comforting. And I think in turn the players see that, you know, they see your vulnerability, and they appreciate you being humble when you're interacting with them.
Again, if you've got questions, please use the raise hand feature. We'll get you called on. We'll go to Johnny and Towel with the Omaha Roller on.
It's been a while since your first interaction with Bruce, I bet, Johnny, but you remember what it was?
Yeah, it was 1994. I was walking through the offices at the old gym. For those of you that know what building that is on campus. But it was in October of '94 as I was here on campus, and it was a fun time for me, and that I was very excited and looking forward to finding out what the next chapter of my life would entail. And you know, the conversation I had with Coach Rass made me feel at home. And to be honest, everybody in that office was very down to earth and very nice and welcoming. And so that wasn't any different for my interactions with Coach Rass.
Next one, Matt Foster, KETV.
Hey Johnny, I know this past year and a half was pretty weird, pretty crazy. Was there anyone else that you would have had full confidence in as an athletic director to kind of get all of Creighton athletics through such
I think Ras has done enough to show that he is one of the best athletic directors in the country. All you got to do is walk through campus and see the magnitude of what he's done for our athletics program. Not only that, but in our community. And so even though this last year and a half was extremely difficult for the entire globe, I was always pretty confident in that Coach Ras was going to come out and be able to navigate this pandemic and help us come out stronger and at a better place. And obviously with the community that we have here in Omaha, Nebraska, and along with the help that the resources that we get at Creighton University, along with Father and the rest of the team, I thought that Creighton came out in a much better place.
Got time for a couple more questions. We'll go back to John Mantown. Again, if you've got a question, use the raise hand feature.
Yeah, Johnny, you mentioned that you guys over the years, probably I'm guessing since you've become a head coach, you've gotten a little bit closer to Rasmussen. How has that relationship sort of evolved over the last few years since you guys have maybe grown closer?
I had a lot of conversations with Coach, even as an assistant coach. And I think it's just the viewpoint which has changed for me, even though the conversations I've always had with Coach Ras have been very valuable to me. As an assistant coach, I think you're more in a supporting role. You're closer to the players per se, but you're more in a supportive role for your immediate boss, which would be your head coach. And so I think our relationship has evolved a little bit, and in my viewpoint of the information that he shared with me now, I have to take in a different light, because at the end of the day, as the head coach, you're now making the decisions. Whereas where I was before as an assistant coach, I could always run my viewpoint or my thought process up the ladder of command, but at the end of the day, I wasn't the one making those decisions. So I think the way that I perceived the information that Coach Ras was sharing with me has evolved and changed now when I've gone from an assistant coach to a head coach.
We'll go to Matt Foster, KTV.
Johnny, how hard is it going to be for the next person who comes in to even remotely try and fill this big void that Bruce leaves behind?
I think Coach Rasmussen has a lot to do with what he's built here at Creighton University. And so he's definitely left his legacy. I think you're right. It's a big job. It's a big national job. And so, for that person coming in, they're going to be big shoes to fill. He's set the bar pretty high. His standards are going to be above and beyond what you would consider an easy job. And so I think the person that comes in, will have to be capable to be able to rise to the occasion. And I think it'll be a great job for the next guy in charge.
Back to John.
I kind of get a sense of what the interactions are like between sort of on an individual basis, but how does Bruce react or act as sort of when he gets you all together, whether it's coaches and the entire athletic department? What are those settings like? Maybe if he addresses your entire team at once, I don't know if that happens, but I see him, when I see him, he's sort of he's so down to earth and kind of interacting on a personal level. There's points where he's got to put the boss hat on, right? Like how does he act in those settings?
Again, John, as much as I'd like to tell you that, he's got different demeanors when he's acting as an AD versus when he's talking to you individually, or he's talking to your team or to a group of coaches. But I just don't see that. And this is what I love so much about Coach Rasmussen, is that he's a genuine, down-to-earth, humble person. And I just don't see that changing much regardless of the situation. And this is something that I find both refreshing and admiring.
All right, last call for questions for Johnny Torres. Not seeing any. Johnny, thank you for your time. We'll have Jim Flattery here shortly.
Thanks, guys.
Creighton head women's basketball coach Jim Flattery joins us now. Jim, we'll have you get started. Just your thoughts on the retirement of Bruce Rasmussen.
Yeah, well, it's a day of, I think, reflection on just what kind of an impact that Bruce has made on the lives of myself, coaches, and donors, and primarily student athletes. I think if I were to kind of get as far back as I can, I think it's just I think it would be neat to be able to just reflect on how many student athletes are going to have strong feelings about, you know, Bruce's retirement, because I think he's had such an impact. I think what makes him great is he's had such an impact on students, and he cares so much about students, and that he's involved with them and knows so many of them by name. And I think if you really think about his impact, it's probably first and foremost on student athletes and former student athletes. And I imagine a lot of them this morning and today are reflecting on the impact that he made, and they're smiling about the care that he gave them, and the mentoring that he gave them, you know, along the way to adulthood. And for me personally, it's also a day of reflection because of how much of an impact he's had on my life, and I can't imagine it's much different than any of the other coaches who are trying to kind of process this. So I'm happy for him personally, I think, and for Jill. I think she deserves some more time with him, and he certainly deserves, you know, to move into that next phase of his life because of just how much he's committed professionally to Creighton and our department, and just happy for him and his family, his 5 kids as well. And but I think it's a time for a lot of reflection on the impact that he's made on our university and our community.
Thank you, Flat. Again, if you've got a question, we'll use the raise hand feature. We'll start with Adam Kruger, Channel 3.
Hey, Coach. The fact that Bruce was a coach in the sport that you now coach, I mean, did that help you throughout your process at Creighton, as having him as a soundboard, and how is that balance between him interjecting his opinion and you asking for your opinion, whether it be X's and O's wise or just stuff off the basketball court as well?
Yeah, I think it's something that could have been worrisome in many situations, because I think it's hard to replace, you know, somebody who, or just hard to be in the position where somebody is overseeing you and they've had your position at some point. So, but Bruce never let it. I never felt pressure from him, and I know that had to be hard for him to kind of navigate, because there were probably times where he's like, "What is this dummy doing?" But I never felt that from him, and I felt like he did a good job of kind of walking the line between, "Hey, I'm available if you want to talk, but I'm not gonna intervene. I'm not gonna step in." And I think early in my career, where I probably struggled with some things, he was really good about, you know, kind of letting me seek him out, but also, you know, hey, here are some things that you can think about. And I just think he navigated that really well, and I really appreciated that, because I think it wasn't probably all that easy for him to not occasionally be like, "What the heck is he doing?" Because I look back and think, what the heck was I doing? But I think that's part of what made him great too, is that he had a feel for that. I think one of the things that made Bruce great is he's a smart man, but beyond being smart, he's wise. And I think there's a difference. And I think if you were to ask any of the coaches, they'd tell you how wise he was, especially those of us who've been around, because you've had to see him navigate some pretty tough stuff, and he usually comes out on the side of what was probably best when you look back. And so I know that with my position, he probably had to be he had to probably, be as good as he could be in that area of just kind of knowing when to let me make mistakes and when to build me up and when to tell me maybe I ought to think about A and B instead of C and D.
Next one, Joe Nugent, Channel 6.
Hey, Flat,
Hey,
I'm
Joe.
wondering if anything comes to mind related to him. I mean, you just touched on it in a sense, but him helping you or helping the team or helping the program, maybe in a unique way that somebody might find surprising. I think we know that athletic directors are there to support teams, but maybe something unique comes to mind that you could share.
Sure. I had some issues early in terms of being able to manage my staff. I'm not a confrontational person. I'm not a person who probably did a good job of managing my staff early, and he gave me an opportunity to go out and talk to Terry Pettit out in Fort Collins. Terry had got into kind of the consulting / coaching coaches sort of thing, and Bruce said he thought it'd be a good idea, and I thought just the way he approached it was good. He wasn't condemning me for some of the mistakes that I'd made, but he's just like, hey, I think this can help you. And so I went out and spent a couple days with Terry, and I think, looking back, I think that was really helpful. It made me be reflective about some things, and I look back and think that was a kind of a unique approach to it. It wasn't, because again, he could have said, hey, I was in your shoes, why don't you spend a few days with me and learn from me? It was, let's send you to somebody who maybe has a lot of experience in coaching but isn't maybe too close to you. So I look back and think that that's something that I think really benefited me, and I think it was good because it probably pushed me to look at other avenues to improve too, not just, hey, this is a one-time thing with Terry Pettit, but hey, there are avenues and opportunities for you to reach out to other people who are going to be able to help you and mentor you. And so I think I think it goes to the fact that Bruce was humble enough to know that there were other people who could help me besides just him.
Johnny Ottawa, Omaha World Herald.
Yeah, I know Bruce has, he's really well grounded and has kind of a overall perspective on things that range beyond sports, but he's super competitive. Like I sat next to him at some of your games, he's just
Yeah.
involved. I wonder how much have you seen that side of, just his competitive spirit? How does that sort of rub off on you as a coach?
Yeah, I think, I knew Bruce as a coach, so I know how competitive he was and how, how cerebral he was and how, as a competitor, he's a type A where he thinks you can always get a little bit more out of yourself, out of your student athletes, out of, so I think when you're around him, that certainly does rub off. That yeah, he's gonna mentor you and he's gonna teach you, but also he's been in that chair before and he wants to win, and I think that's part of why he stayed in it as long as he did. I mean, I think it's certainly a weird day to have somebody who's been doing something so long decide that they're not going to do it anymore, but in a way you have to ask, how does somebody stay in it this long? And I think part of the answer is that he was competitive and he wants to win.
Last chance for questions for Coach Jim Flattery. Please use the raise hand feature if there's any additional questions. We'll go to John Viatella.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, snuck it
Yeah,
in.
you're good.
I just wonder, we've kind of talked a little bit about the way that you guys would interact and the advice that he'd give. Were there times when you were maybe early in your career, after a while, you probably understood what the relationship was going to be like, but you nervous at all walking into his office after a season that you didn't like, or after a game that didn't go your way? You know, how did you sort of, you know, what were those experiences like early on? Just how do I talk to this guy?
Sure. I think one of the things that made Bruce special was that, you know, you could have an uncomfortable conversation with him and walk out of his office and not know exactly where you stood. But he's such a reflective person, and I'm fairly reflective by nature too, that you know, at some point, you know, not long after that conversation, he'd reach back out to you with additional thoughts, and maybe he'd soften his view, and you'd come to a greater understanding. And I feel like that's one of the things that in my mind made him special, was that you got to know that you could have an uncomfortable conversation with him that later wasn't going to be as uncomfortable, because he was going to process what you said, and what your angle was and what you were maybe fighting for, and he was going to maybe give some ground on where you were. And we didn't have a lot of those over the years, but we had some where it's like, hey, I think we need this, or, you know, what do you think you can do to help us with this? And, you know, he's got to protect the whole program, right? He's got to protect the budget of every other program, and I guess one of the things I appreciated, that he would always circle back to you and say, look, I thought about what you said. I'm willing to give ground here, or I've thought about what you said, and I really appreciate your angle, but I can't really help you. But I think just the notion that he was going to continue to reflect on what you said was really valuable as a coach, because it means that it just shows care. It just shows that he, you know, went to bed at night not just thinking about men's basketball, that he went to bed at night thinking about all of his programs and all of his coaches and all of his student athletes, and how we all kind of fit together. Because, like I said, he can't just think about I have to think about my program, and he has to think about, you know, 13 other programs and what it's going to mean across campus or within the university. And so I just think it goes back to just how reflective he is, and so I feel like he was really good that way. But yeah, there were times where you're like, okay, we didn't win enough games this year, and here's a guy who was the former women's basketball coach. So what's he gonna think about me? But I always thought, I mean, I'll tell you another story. I mean, you know, and this gets a little personal, but I had a kid before I got married, and I went into his office to tell him that my girlfriend was pregnant, and that's uncomfortable. But all he talked about was what a joy fatherhood was. You know, how much I was going to enjoy being a father. Okay, and I eventually married Emily. But man, that was so, just the way he was able to tell, you know, treat me as a person and as a going to be father was pretty impactful, because I can tell you that it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to do, and I think just very, very appreciative of how he handled you as a human being, in all your imperfections, was really, really powerful to me.
We'll do one final question with John.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you guys don't have to do anything with it, but I think it shows, you know, how much he cared about me and didn't judge me in that moment. And I think there are a lot of times where it's really easy to go the other way on those things.
Lance, I just want to ask about Sokol. I mean, we've kind of seen, so his legacy is what people have talked about, but also he'll have like permanent buildings that were erected during his time. Just what do you remember about the process of getting that together, and how important has that been for the growth of your program over the years?
Yeah, I think until you go through that and find how impactful that building and that our arena is, you maybe don't appreciate what you don't have, and until you have it. And I know he had to go through a lot. Fundraising at Creighton is not easy. I know in general it's not easy. He's talked to me a lot about, hey, you think you have this amount of money, and then you don't have, all of a sudden you don't, and just an appreciation for how much grit and how much you have to grind to get to a point where you can build something as special as that. And I think, when we got in the Big East and these coaches came into Sokol and, talked about what a great place to play it is, then you have a sense for how he had to build that. But, I think Bruce is, I haven't talked about it, but he's such a relationship person, and that's how he was able to fundraise and put these venues on our campus that he helped do, because he's such a relationship builder, and people trust him, and that's how he was able to get things done as a fundraiser and as a builder of the arenas and venues and stadiums that we have.
All right, thank you, Flan. We'll have Ross Paul join us very soon.
Okay, thank you guys.
The recording has stopped.
Gotta say, I didn't expect to re-roll at a press conference.
Women's soccer head coach Ross Paul now joins us. Ross, I'll start off. If you could just tell us your thoughts on the retirement of Bruce Rasmussen.
Mixed feelings. Known him for so long. Back when I was a student athlete here, he became the athletic director, and coming back and him giving me my first opportunity as a head coach, Division I college, at a place that I love, and seeing him retiring from so much that he's built here it's hard, because those are big shoes to fill, but also happy for him to move on and put focus on family.
I will now take questions. If you've got a question for Ross, please use the raise hand feature and we'll get you called on. We'll get started with John Newtown with the Omaha World Arrow.
Yeah, Ross, what were the early days like? You got this head coaching job, like you said, you're grateful, but you obviously want to do well. And how do you sort of interact with a guy like Bruce as you're working to kind of build up the program?
Well, he believed in me from the beginning. Again, he knew me as an athlete. He knew my drive and my passion behind what I did as a player, and I bring that same passion, and he knew that. He knows I'm very driven behind really building a program the right way, and to interact with him with so much experience that he's had as a leader here at Creighton is a perfect spot for me to start my career as a coach at Division I. And at a place, again, that I love, and mostly because of the culture that he built, and how he interacts with his coaches, how he believes in his coaches, how he sticks behind his coaches, and he's very careful about the coaches that he chooses, because he wants to put the right people here at Creighton to continue to build the culture here that's so special.
Matt Foster, Channel 7.
Hey Ross, did this news of Bruce's retirement kind of catch you off guard at all, or the timing of it and everything?
Yeah, it did, but he has his personal reasons that he's been thinking about this for a while. It's not I don't see anything that he does as just a rash decision. He's very well thought through. He's very smart, very wise, and again, that's why I'm happy for him. And again, just on our side of it, it's big shoes to fill, but I'm happy for him. we knew it would come at some point. Everybody has to end their career at some time. And it just so happens it's now, and we got to move forward and continue to build this special place that he really put the foundation on.
Joe?
Hey Ross, curious if there's any story or something that you could share related to how Bruce has helped you or helped the program in a way that is unique, something beyond what you would expect from an athletic director. Just I don't know, something different that might surprise us.
I don't know if it'll surprise you. He's just very, very humble when he's talking to you. He's and very honest behind his evaluation of where you're at. And as a player, I knew that he believed in me, and I think that's the biggest part that always stuck with me. Is I had this athletic director who was a coach before becoming an athletic director, and I still call him coach because that's kind of the way I look at him. He's a coach, and that coaches really impact their players. Even though I didn't play for him, he's just somebody that you almost want to play for. So when I left here, I always had that feeling, and watching from a distance of his leadership and talking to coaches here, obviously very good friends with Johnny Torres, and both of us coming here at the same time as players, now both back here coaching, both been through the same experiences with Ras as our athletic director, as from a player now to a coach. It didn't change too much from being a player to being a coach. He, like I said, he interacts with us the same, with respect and belief. I think those are the two things that I can say is he really thinks through how he's leading us as coaches and what he expects out of us. And it wasn't any different than I thought of as a player. Like I said, I have very high standards and I have big goals of what I want to do here at Creighton. He believed in me that I can do that, and I'm going to continue on that path.
We've got time for a few more questions with Ross. If you've got a question, you can use the raise hand feature and we'll get you called on. We'll go to John.
Yeah, what do you think it is about the culture, maybe within the athletic department, that's maybe attracted guys like you and Johnny to come back? Coach Flattery just talked to us, and he's a Creighton guy too. There's a lot of, obviously a lot of coaches have stayed around for a long time. What sticks out about the culture in the athletic department that's allowed that to happen?
It's all about relationships with him. I think he takes the time to get to know you. He knows who you are as a person, what drives you, what ticks you, the culture of having that family environment is something that definitely drew me here as a player. I had a lot of choices out there to go to different schools, top schools, and I chose here mostly because of that culture. It was a family feel to it, and it wasn't just from the soccer side of it. It's really just every one of our sports, every one of our coaches really want to build relationships with our players, really develop our players and really see them succeed because they came here. We want to still have that. It's who we are as a program. It's who we are at Creighton as athletics. And I think that's what Ras has. He has that humble mindset, but he can bring he's great sense of humor when you need it. Great storyteller. He knows what's needed in the moment. Again, he's somebody that is enjoyable to work for. But I look at him, from the relationship side, and he's somebody that laid a great foundation here and really made a huge impact on me in my life. And he's somebody that will continue to do that.
Are there any additional questions for Ross Bally? All right, I'm not seeing any. Ross, thank you for your time today.
Yeah.